Hi Gareth.
Hi Ian, how are you?
Hi, good. Obviously, we're going live over Facebook. We're going live over for our, obviously, some of our students. So it's
Yeah.
obviously great to have the CEO of Sportz Village Academies in the United Arab Emirates. Is that right?
It is indeed. Yeah, many other brands in our portfolio, but yeah, here in Dubai at the moment, and it's just looking outside. It's about 41 degrees, so lockdown isn't that bad.
Oh well, it's about 10 degrees here if I'm lucky. So I think you've got the better weather there.
I wouldn't mind swapping.
What's lockdown like? How are you coping?
It's been tough. Not going to lie about that. In terms of, we got the 1st of March was around the time of when we really got hit with a wave, probably coming from the east. So the 1st of March and 8th of March was the first week that we really started getting affected. Sessions cancelled, schools closing, sports venues closing up. So it was that was the week that we really got hit. So from March the 8th, we've been completely stopped in everything we do. I'm sure we'll touch on what we do in the future. But so it's been tough since then. So what's that? Is that 9 weeks? 8 or 9 weeks?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that'll be interesting is listening to how it's been affecting the other countries. So that'll be good for obviously just down the line. So obviously,
Sure.
just touching back on going back to obviously how you got to UAE, you'll be further down the
Yeah.
line. But just obviously, you started off as obviously aspiring footballer at Sunderland. What was that like? Talk us through how that was.
Yeah, I mean, it was everybody's dream, I guess, to be, or especially in sport, and if you grew up in sport, to be a footballer and aspire to play in the Premier League and be the next Beckham in sort of my era. But it was an interesting upbringing. So if I just go back from being a footballer to sort of my upbringing, really, my mum and dad, and I was fortunate to have a bit of a unique upbringing. My mum and dad got a job when I was about 10 and a half, 11, looking after footballers. So I lived in a house in Sunderland, right on the beach, seafront, with 15, 16 YTS players. So Michael Bridges, Darren Holloway, Sam Aston, Paul Heckingbottom, David Priest, people like that from the northeast, I guess. Lived in with my mum and dad. So, but football for me was like, it wasn't drummed in. It was me. I was brought up in that environment. So playing two touch in the garden wasn't your usual game of ronda. It was quite competitive and decent standard. And as an 11, 12-year-old, it was quite daunting. But then I guess when you move from living with footballers and you're lucky enough to get signed, originally sort of schoolboy forms into the Centre of Excellence, it helped being a part of the football crew, so to speak, due to standards and understanding what it takes and all of some of the off the field distractions. So I seen early a couple of lads who went off the rails, a couple of lads who were caught up in it, maybe not cut out for it. So I was like, I couldn't be more prepared for the lifestyle or the life of that. And then leave school on the 29th of May after your GCSEs, playing Wembley pairs, and then 4 or 5 days later you're playing, trying to keep Mark Kev Phillips and Niall Quinn. So that was the weekend that life changed.
So what age did you go into the School of Excellence? Because it's obviously a lot's changed through academy structure now. So what age did obviously Sunderland sign you on schoolboy forms? It used to be 14, 13, 14. Is that about right?
Yeah. So I would have gone in 2 or 3 times 2 or 3 nights a week from around 13, 14. So obviously, like people like Jed McNamee, who's been there for 20 odd years, would have been my coaches. Rick Sabrasia, Kev Richardson, Pop Robson, Peter Reid, that era. So 96, 7 to like 2002, 3 was when I was there.
Very respectable coaches as well.
Yeah, you just got, from growing up with the players I've just mentioned, just playing in the garden, to getting coached by them guys on a night, to going in full time, I couldn't not improve. that was ever clear. The standard of youth team players was phenomenal. And And it was just every single day was so difficult, hard, competitive. It was ruthless. My view was it sort of created that character and that sort of personality to, if you weren't going to make it, you go and do something else. And I was very sort of like that, to be honest.
You used a word there that obviously is used in sport a lot, is ruthless. And I think ruthless in football and in all sport is something that a lot of kids are now getting taught at an older age, and it seems to affect them. How did it affect you? Because obviously you went on to be released. Obviously you played for the reserves. You went on to be released. How did that affect you psychologically?
Nothing can prepare you for it apart from the preparation stuff that you put in place. So that I call it a car crash decision or a car crash sort of effect in your life, that every single day, cycling to school, running to school, cat and dog steps with your dad to get fitter, faster, to being full time, to then being told you're not good enough. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter how prepared you are, that hurts. And it hurts.
Yeah. I read a stat recently, and obviously it came out in 2017, but it said 0.5% of all kids who started in professional academies at the age of 9 won't play professional football. Yeah. Did the club prepare you for being released, do you think?
I prepared myself, obviously sort of brutally honest about myself. After the first 2 or 3 weeks of being into a full-time 3-year contract, I knew I was not going to make it. And mental preparation, but still went on to captain the team, still went and played to the best of my ability, played very, very well. Just knew there was a little X factor missing. Remember, in my youth team, there was 9 internationals: England, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland. I was a local lad, albeit the only local lad there, but it was very, very challenging environment. So I probably prepared myself, although as long as you're still there on a contract, you think, oh, I could turn it around. There just was never that moment where I thought, you know what, I've got a chance here. I just thought I was part of it, which again is probably honest and great to reflect back on that. But it didn't make it any easier, and it didn't make it any softer. It was a in the manager's office discussion to be released. The club, because I grew up in the club, I knew the club, and still probably do, inside and out. Every single person. They didn't prepare you as like, this could happen. Remember, not everybody makes it, because you have to be in that elite environment to say everybody's going to make this. And if you're not strong enough, you're not going to make it anyway. So don't even think about not making it. So there was never a preparation of what's plan B, because you can only focus on plan A, was the rhetoric. But the environment being so good was a protector. They give you the best skills, the best training, the best advice. They created you as a character and a personality to the best they could. So in that sense, yes, they did prepare you, but there was never, ever a conversation of, you know, Gareth, you've only got 2.5 years left. You might not make it, so you should be thinking about this. That was never discussed. So that's where the car crash happened. But I guess the preparation before that and the journey sort of prepared you as a human, or a man, or a boy turning into a man that I was.
So obviously, looking back in the players that you played with then, was there any that went on to be like really successful, and you could see it? And what was the difference, do you think?
Yeah. I don't know if people will remember, but so I grew up as a youngster looking at these players like Hecky, Darren Holloway, Paul Heckenbottom, Michael Bridges. They would have been my sort of youth team idols as I was coming up. When I was in the youth team, I played with Ben Clark, Mark Rossiter, Tom Butler, Kev Kyle, George McCartney, those type who you're training with every day, and you're thinking, I don't think I was good, and I will openly admit that. But when you look at the next level, there's another level above that as well. You think, oh God. And they just do things differently. They make things look easier. They're as fast as they need to be. They're just that bit fitter than you need to be. And they've just got that something that I was looking, going, yeah, I'm okay, but these fellas are the real deal. And it's hard to it's hard to see it when you're playing with them and thinking, well, I'm playing just as well as them and I'm just as good as them. But there's just that moment where you think, yeah, I wouldn't have won that header, or I might not have made that tackle, or that pass. I was a good passer, by the way, but that pass was special, Darren, or something like that. That was tough. But Ben Clark was England captain, ex-Man United, come to Sunderland, played in the youth team with him for a few months, if not a few years, and he was a class above as well. So yeah, there's loads that I've missed out, which I apologise to anybody who I've missed out.
No, I mean it's great to hear, because obviously you see these players, but then obviously what happened next? Obviously, because you didn't move straight away. What happened next? How did the career?
Yes, yeah, so 2002-03 was the dreaded moment when it's official that you're not there anymore, and then you're not going to the training ground every day, and you have to sit down and think, and that wasn't easy. There was times when you think, God, what was I put on this planet for? I wanted to be a footballer. I still want to be a footballer. My friends were footballers, because you grow up, you end up in that bubble, and it's often referred to as the football bubble, and it is, and it was. And it's tough to come out of it when you've been in it, because there's a support system there. You're told what to wear, what time to be at, everything. It took me about 3 months to really sort of have a proper conversation about, so what do I have to do next? Because I'm 19 and a half, 20, and there's a life ahead. And to be fair, mum and dad, just incredible people anyway, brother, girlfriend, everybody around me was such a support. But even then, that wasn't enough, because it was my head that was sort of affected, not theirs. The easiest thing is to say, stay positive, something will happen. But the hardest thing is being the person who has to make it happen. I had a chat with my gran, and my gran just said to me, what do you know? What do you love? Football. What can you do now if you don't want to play? I didn't want to fall down. I didn't want to go on trials. I didn't want to play non-league. And that might have said, did you not love the game enough? I loved the game, but I just was aspiring to be up the top, and that was it. So I spoke to my gran, and my gran just said, why not take your knowledge in your head? You're a good lad. You've got a good demeanour about you. Why don't you go and coach some kids and try and share that knowledge with kids? So I went to a local school, hired a gymnasium, got some leaflets done, sent them out. And within, I think it was about 3 weeks, I had about 350 kids turn up. And I was like, oh, what do I do now? I'd already done some coaching badges at Sunderland, so I was nearly qualified for my B license. I was all right, and I knew what I was doing. And again, growing up in that environment with the coaches I've mentioned was easy, really. And then coaching these kids, and Martin Gray at Darlington invited me to come to Darlington and do some sessions with a couple of the younger ages. I knew Martin from Sunderland years back as well. Martin said, why don't you come and help me with the youth team? But I'm not going to dress it up. It was driving from Sunderland to Darlington twice a day at least. It was putting petrol in the car, and I wasn't earning to cover that. It was no straight journey. It wasn't easy, but again, just go back to the skills and the character building that the club provided. That's in you then. It's part of your DNA, and that was like, well, I'm not going to let that affect me. My girlfriend was giving me a £5 to put in the car to get to the session, so it was tough, really, really tough. And you go in some dark places. You think about things you never thought you would have to think about, never mind want to think about. And it's the strength to get out of that. And then youth team with Darlington with my private academy, so that was getting me by. I was applying for jobs, never done that before, never had a CV, never went for job interviews. I think that's where clubs and colleges, and I know colleges do a great job in getting that employability and getting people prepared for employment, which is more important than anything you can ever do, is how employable are you, and can you go and sell yourself, basically. And I was going for interviews, getting the interview because my CV was okay. Footballer, grew up with footballers, coaching. And then you'd walk in and you're 19 and a half and a 20-year-old and look, oh, well, this job's for a 35-year-old. What are you doing here? And it was really demoralizing. I mean, that was probably harder than getting released, because I knew I could do the job. I knew I could go in. I knew I could manage or coach to any level I needed to. Listen, I wasn't going for the Man United first team job. I was going for jobs relative to my experience, but age played a factor. And then just thought, right, hold on, I need to check again here. So I sent a short letter to a load of people around the world, just random agents, random networking groups, just anything I could find in 2004-05. And I got an email back from a guy who was based in Dubai, not far from where you are now, from a lovely sunny place called Redcar. And he said, I've been in Dubai for 25 years. I'm looking for a football coach. Would you mind coming out and having a look? And can you come tomorrow? And I was like, well, I like that upfrontness, but I can't come tomorrow. So I went to Darlington, spoke to the manager, and he said, go and have a look. Go for 6 weeks, see what it's like. And that was October to Christmas. And I arrived here, and 15 and a half years later, I'm still here.
Yeah. So obviously you've now obviously moved over there, and obviously we'll touch.
Yeah.
I can just linking into obviously. So obviously we're in lockdown at the moment with obviously a lot of social distancing. How are the pandemic laws out there? How strict are they?
Very. It's from early on, the government here got a grip of it in terms of, we don't know what it is. It's a virus or whatever it is. We don't know what it is, but let's really take this ultra serious. And to be fair, the government's here, and I've wrote a lot about it in sort of dissertations and assignments when I was doing my master's degree. But it's a very, very royal leadership hierarchy here. So the sheikh runs the emirate, and then a number of sheikhs run the country, and we are sort of told what to do at certain times of our existence here. And I think it's stood us in good stead, that type of leadership style, in terms of don't go out. We weren't allowed out the house for 4 weeks. To leave the house, we had to apply for a permit for the pharmacy, supermarket, or ATM machine to get some cash. They were the only 3 reasons we were allowed to leave the house. And although that sounds a bit draconian and a bit, oh my goodness, really? We've only had, every death's a nightmare, but we've only, I think, 140 deaths out of the thousands that are around the other places. So it's stood us in good stead. The last 2 weeks, it's died down a little bit in terms of we can move a bit freer, but malls have only just opened the other day. Golf courses have just opened the other day, but no contact sports, no gymnasiums, no cinemas. No entertainment, really. The hardcore services have opened up again.
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, I want to touch on the sport in obviously United Arab Emirates. What's it like at all levels? So thinking about like the sports continuum, from obviously foundation, participation, performance to excellence. How does that look?
Yeah. So the clearest way to describe it would be to do it in 2 bits. The first bit is the Emirati local families and people. So the UAE has 9.5 million people, and 15% are locals. 85% are expatriate, which is an incredible dynamic. Therefore, there are state schools that only locals can go to, and then there are private schools that expatriates have to pay to go to school. So it's all private education. So that sets a bit of a context. In sport, expatriates and overseas people can't play in the professional clubs, or if that's basketball, swimming, or even football. So it's very it's sort of 2 dynamics there. So it's a local base and then an expatriate base. The expatriate base is all paid and private. So we've got private academies. Children pay to play. And I know there's lots of them in England and around the world as well, but that's our system. We haven't got a real governing body of that. Although we work under the Sports Council, there's no regulation in that, so to speak. As long as you're a registered business and you've got your visas and things in line, you can go and sell that service. The schools are aligned to different education curricula around the world. So you've got your US, you've got your Indian curriculum, you've got your UK, British standard curriculum, and they all achieve very good results and do very well from a private education standpoint. In sport, the local clubs have full academies, full pathways. To what level varies, and everybody will have an opinion on that. In the private sector, the more successful academies have a very Western way of a development pathway. So you've got your schools, you've got your after school clubs, then you've got your academies and your leagues and your squads. And there have been successful swimmers and footballers and gymnasts who have left the UAE at a certain age and gone back to their home country and represented their country in Olympics, professional and collegiate. So there's still pathways. It's just a little bit tougher, and the competition at that secondary school age group under 12, 13, 14, 15 isn't as competitive as a Western developed market. Therefore, we have a lot of kids who probably think it's best for their sporting development to go back to a developed market at that age group if they're serious about progress.
So how does the government support sport as a whole? Do they want to progress sport?
So I would say yes, yes and no. So we have all the major sporting events that come here. We have all the major. Let's go football. We have FIFA World Club Championships has been here the last couple of years. We have all of the Premier League, most of the top Premier League clubs come out here and do their warm weather training. So from a tourism and investment perspective, there's facilities there, and they come out and do their stuff here. From a government support for the private academies, there's none. Let's be very fair, it's a private sector. So we don't draw funding down. We don't get grants or loans or anything like that. We have to be sustainable financially, which has challenges, but that's the environment we're in. So we have to make that work. There's a big corporate business scene, so you can easily get access to big business to go and speak to about sponsorships, scholarships, and things like that. So that replaces the UK funding platform, so to speak. So yeah, and on the Emirati side, that's all government funded. So on the local side, the 15%, the government gives the Football Association X amount, they spend that in their clubs. The horse riding, X amount, it goes in their clubs, in their stables. So it's fully funded and zero funding, 85%, 15%.
So how does it work? Because obviously you've got a lot of rich businessmen trying to buy Premier League clubs in this country, and is that something is it big over there?
Football is the number one sport. It's huge from participation. It's huge viewership. It's ridiculous. I mean, I think the television rights deal for the Middle East is one of the largest sections of the television deal in the world. So you've got 40 million people in Saudi Arabia, and obviously topical with the Newcastle United thing, acquisition. So football is the number one sport, and it's watched by every creed and gender in this country and around the Middle East. Every single league and every single match in that league is live on our telly. Every league. Spain, France, Germany, Portugal, I probably missed a few off there. England, all the Major League Champions League at all times. We're 3 hours ahead now, and we're 4 hours ahead in the summer months. So that adjusts like your 8 o'clock kickoffs midnight and your 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday, 7 o'clock. But all the bars, all the cafes, all the televisions are on watching football. It's the number one sport.
So if you a lot of it is privatized because obviously with the 85%.
Sure.
Do you find sport, because people are paying for it, do you think there's a greater appreciation of its value?
What a question that is. I generally think as well, if you pay for something, there is a level of commitment that you put to it. So I think there's a bit there. I think there's a resentment for Western families paying for sport in our academies, thinking, I wouldn't pay this much in the UK. And there's a lot of that we deal with, and that they're very acceptable questions to ask. But there's a cost of living here that my coaches have to live and be alive and healthy. So there's a knock-on effect on that. I think there's they're paying good money as well. It's not £2, £3, £4 a session. It's very high entry price to join an academy. And we have different levels of pricing and different levels of engagement. Once a week, 5 times a week. Do you want to be in the squads? Things like that on selection. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question directly, but it probably skirts around the issue a little bit.
No, I think what that answers is then, if that links in then, so how does the competition lie then? So if you're talking about paying, could somebody pay for a higher premium but not be as good, if you know what I mean?
It's a challenge that, if I go back to my first the first 3 months I was in this country, on the other side of the office where the guy, my boss, old boss, Clive Francis, ran a tennis academy, he used to have a Russian guy who would walk in just 5 o'clock on a night with a handful of cash and say, make my son a professional. So that happened, and that happens. So you can't say it doesn't happen, but how we deal with that is how you're going to be successful or not in our case of balancing business and development. There's a realization that we might have to have with that gentleman to say, your son needs an assessment. No, but there's the money. He goes to professional. Yeah, but we need to assess him. We need to find the competition he needs to play in. We need to look at the measurables, and we need to look at the level of coach at this period. He was 11-year-old at the time. So we had that education piece, and that's why we have great coaching teams here as well. We employ very good coaches who can describe this journey far better than I can, by the way, but describe this journey to the gentleman to say, this is what needs to happen. You can't just buy a professional contract or buy an ATP to a place. And sometimes with cash comes an expectation. So I give you that money. Why is he not a professional? I give you that money. Why is he not winning the tournament? I'm going to another coach because I can buy a coach. Yes, you can. There's no doubt about that. But for your son's development, he might need to lose. He can't lose. He might need to lose. He might need to learn how to lose, because you're going to lose more times than you win in tennis, right? So there's lots of different challenges with that paid model. And you see that in private education. You see that in many things. If I buy an airline ticket, I don't expect a delay. I expect my food hot. There's expectations come with pricing, right? So it's a challenge, and it's one that we have to deal with head on, sensitively, but educated as well.
Yeah, so obviously, as you're saying, some people think, I mean, even in this country, I think if some people could buy success, they would. And going back to it then, so looking at the company that you work for, do you have a clear philosophy of how you want to run the sport? Is that from top to bottom? So the philosophy of how you do things? Because you've just said it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It's really, really difficult, because at the same time as saying, and this is the biggest and you couldn't have hit me at a better time, because we've just come out of a budget meeting for the future. And the biggest challenge in my life is not finding coaches or doing this or leading or whatever. All the stuff that I have to do as part of my role is balancing business against development of children. That's my biggest challenge, because for every child that I need in the program or want in the program, I've got salaries, costs, venue rentals, equipment, coaches, etc., etc. And I always use little Johnny, but little Johnny deserves the best coaching possible in that environment. Whether his mum or dad's paying for it or not is irrelevant. The fact that they are is just part of the process. But to balance the development and business is the biggest singular challenge that we face. And I know that's the same in private education. I've worked in private education for 10, 12 years. Our business got bought out by a big education company here, who have like 280 schools around the world. And I went around the world managing the sport in all their schools and academies. And that was their biggest challenge as well, because you can find principals, we can find teachers, but do they know the balance between fee paying and business against the development of children, and making sure the kids are at the right competitive levels, not just pushing them forward because the dad's paying. That's that education through the process. So that's a topic in itself really, but it's a very pertinent one.
I mean, obviously for us, I think some of our students would love to aspire to be obviously working in an environment like that. So how do you look for your coaches? What do you look for? Do you get them locally? Do they come from England? How do they?
Yeah, sure. So I'll go my last role, and then we'll go this role, and then it gives you a massive sort of paradigm really. In my last role, we had 22,000 staff from 186 different countries. That was my last role. I was a group MD sport in an education company around the world. So the cultural differences, the language, time zones, incredible. Best learning journey ever. My current role, we have 60, 70 staff, flexi and full time. Our football is heavily British focused. Our swimming, we have French, South African, English, Irish. are cricket, Indian, Pakistan, British. So lots of different dynamics within the group. And again, leading is one thing, but leading a multicultural team is a completely different thing, because they don't know Gareth, they don't know Gareth, they don't know Sunderland. And trying to explain something from Karachi about my upbringing is a challenge. And I believe you have to know people and try and get under the skin to sort of lead them better. And I love it, don't get me wrong, but it's a huge challenge and it takes a lot of time.
So what would you look like?
So just as the recruitment piece, the recruitment piece, we would reach out ourselves, advertisement, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, looking for coaches, these criteria, this level, this age group. We go to our network. So when we come home a lot, we travel back to see our families in the UK or wherever the families are. We'll reach out to our networks. And that's basically how we don't really recruit locally that much. If I'm being honest, we really do look outside. We're fortunate to have in our football team, for example, coaching team, we have ex-Middlesbrough coaches, ex-Man City coaches, Newcastle players who we can sort of tap back into the colleges, the clubs, the local grassroots clubs to sort of recruit. It's not for everyone in terms of living abroad, living outside their home comforts, or even living in the Middle East or further. But probably 90% of people who come stay. And stay for at least a year or two to get a good feel for it and sort of learn in this environment.
So if you were looking at that process, would they come over with, obviously we talk about qualifications, is it more a people person that you look for then, or somebody you look at the academic or the coaching qualifications? Mm-hmm. Obviously you talked about people who've worked in academies, you've worked in for big clubs, so obviously they've got the experience. So obviously we'd be looking at our students. They may just think, well, I'd like to go out there. What sort of things would you look for? Skills and quality.
Yeah, sure. I think so. So me, when I moved here at 20 with little experience, what was the biggest question? Oh, you're lacking experience. Well, how am I going to get experience if you don't give me a chance? Opportunity. So what we do and what we believe in a lot is giving people opportunity. Then it's up to the person and the character to stay in that opportunity and grow. The start of that process is, what have you done? Don't worry about what you haven't done. What have you done? What skills have you got? What qualifications, if any? What licenses, if any? But put yourself out there. Sell yourself to us. And, I'm a really good person. Oh, he's a really good person. He's done this or she's done this. I haven't got a level 1 football cup. No problem. If you're a good person, you've come forward, you've put yourself out there, you want to be challenged, you want to learn, well, we'll find a course for you. We'll put you on a license. We can put you through that process. But show me you've got a bit of oomph. Show me you're committed. Show me what your skill sets are, and show me what your character's about. Because the last thing you're going to need is, I've got this license, I'm this experienced, this qualified, but I love a lie in. I'm not very time conscious. I'm not going to work very hard. Give us 2 hours a day and I'm fine. You're going to last 2 minutes, aren't you, really? In any walk of life.
Yeah, I think that's what's great. Obviously, if they're not listening or they'll rewatch this, it's the philosophy of getting out there and hard work and not just doing, it's being that person to go, do you know what? I'm willing to put myself out there. And we try to teach them this, to go and get the experience, get the volunteer experience.
Sure.
And then the opportunities will come. And then obviously, so once you've got your coaches out there, how do you develop them? How do you keep them developed?
Yeah.
We look at pathways for English coaches, obviously the FA, different people. How do you coach them out there? How do you have that coach education?
Yeah, sure. No, for sure. And it's a big part. We're lucky in a sense that Dubai's on the map and people know Dubai, and it's quite a travel hub, central hub of the world, really. So we're very fortunate that in our football academy, a guy leads that program called Chris Brown. He's intrinsically linked with the English FA, and we've got an English FA centre here that we can upskill and put on licenses and coaching awards. So that's a really good string to our bow on that sense. In swimming, there's a swimming federation who do certain things, but then because of the expatriate piece, there's a lot of national bodies like Swim England, who we're very close with, Loughborough come out and do a lot of CPD. And we're always looking for college. By the way, we're always looking for colleges and people who can come out and upskill, and staff members and people who are in that 9.5 million people in Dubai only, or UAE, to look at online courses back in the UK if UK is their standard. So there's a huge CPD element. There's also the get up and go as well. We can put courses on for our team at 60, 70 and say, right, Gareth's running a leadership hour next week. It's interesting who wants to sign on to them, and it's more interesting who doesn't like listening to stuff, but they'll tell you they want to learn, and they'll tell you they want to do this, this, and this, but it's actually grabbing that opportunity again and taking everything as, well, if I learn one thing in that 1 hour, I've learned one thing that day. If you learn one thing every day, it's 365 things you've learned in a year. And I do that in people and networking, but I also do that in learning and opportunity. I think it's massively important, hugely important.
I mean, obviously, it's fantastic, because then you came back and you did a master's, didn't you, in sports directorship. How did that help develop yourself? And obviously, thinking about the leadership approach, how did that help?
Yeah.
Because obviously, that's looking at then the education side, isn't it?
Yeah. So at 37, so about 32 years old, I'm working for the biggest private education company in the world. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids around the world, and I'm the only person, because of circumstance, now I can fill that in, but I'm the only person around the boardroom table who doesn't have a degree. I didn't have a degree. I left school with X amount of GCSEs, probably less than my hand. Went into football, finished football, did my studies through my scholarship and pro, but I was going to be a footballer, plan A. So got a sports studies. I think it was a BTEC actually at the time, and then left that business. And I'd honestly just thought I needed confidence. I needed to understand myself more, and I needed a bit of validation to, okay, you've done all right, you've done well, you're a group managing director of $1 billion company, but was that luck? How did you get there? What did you do? Are you going to get another job? And it was really pressing on my mind. So an opportunity come from, there was a gentleman who I knew at Manchester City actually, who said, Gareth, just have a look at this. There's a course at Manchester Metropolitan University. It's distance learning, but you do have to go as well. So there might be a challenge there. I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at the time with my wife in Dubai. I had a full-time job. I was in an aeroplane more than I was in the office, because I was traveling with work, and it was really full on. And I just thought, I can't give this chance up. I rang the university. They rang me and said, we'll do an online interview. And I said, 2-hour interview, very rigorous. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm sweating, shaking. And at the end, I just said, oh, by the way, I said, I've probably just wasted 2 hours because I've only got 3 GCSEs. And they said, no, it's experiential. But what you've just described is exactly the type of people we want on the course. It's validation, it's credibility. I was like, oh my word, they're the words that I need to remember. And went on the course. And from, it was a 2.5, 3-year course, I had to fly to Manchester for 4 days every 8 weeks for 2.5 years. So huge on cost, huge on time, huge on effort. Every single Saturday for 2.5 years, 7-8 hours would study, 10 hours of reading on a night a week with small children and a wife. It was unbelievably difficult. I can't mask it. Got ill through it as well, through job and trying to this work-life balance thing, and it was incredible. It was life-changing in what it's done for me, and it was incredibly life-challenging whilst doing it. But from a leadership and networking, understanding why I was doing things just off the cuff that I would describe it, but then reading about it and going, that's what it's called. Goleman's 6 leadership styles. I never knew Goleman was, but I was using 6 of his styles that he mentioned in his book. So I'm like, oh, right, I was authoritative. Oh, I do need to be a bit more democratic. It was just unbelievable, Ian, to be honest. But again, I could go into so much detail, but what it's done for me was give me that confidence, give me that credibility, validation of what I was doing, to say, you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. You're still going to learn, but you're probably you're in the right highway. You might not be in the right lane, but you're on the right highway.
I think it's so admirable that you're top of a business and you're still willing to put yourself out there to re-educate yourself. And so, did your leadership style change after doing the degree, or do you think no, it just validated what you were doing, as you said?
I understood more what I was doing, and it made and makes me now think a lot more than I was doing. I stop and pause, I stop and think, I reflect more. It takes me longer to do strategic things rather than just going, just do it, get it done. I was a bit more, I would say, crisp, but it was crisp with intuition rather than thoughtful through understanding. And I think that's important to understand. When I was 20 to 30 in my career, it was just 150 mile an hour, get it done. If we make a mistake, it'll be fine, we'll just get it done. But it was more sort of driven. Whereas probably now 30 to 40, gosh, nearly 40, 30 to 40, it's more of a, let's think about this, thoughtful. And that has a career impact as well, because 20 to 30, I was in the coal face, I was on the grass, and I was at the forefront. Whereas when you move up through whatever levels, you sort of have a little bit more time to be a bit more cautious and thoughtful. But yeah, it didn't change my leadership styles, because styles being flexible, but it made me understand at what time do I need to apply the right style, and understand what I meant by that, because I didn't understand. I couldn't have that conversation 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, that's fantastic insight, and I think anybody who's listening can understand that from a sport and linking that sport to business. So then, sure. If you think about them, so who inspires you? Obviously, you're thinking about reading different things, different books, different studies. Yeah. Who inspires you? Yeah,
so nobody inspires me. I've realised that. It's took me a long time through reading. Topics inspire me. So things like leadership, selling, these new webinars that have just popped up because of lockdown are fascinating, and I kind of do enough of them in terms of listening and watching. I'm obsessed with listening to people. Now, I might put my phone down or my computer down or a podcast down after 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and go, yeah, I didn't get much out of that. But I didn't know before I did it what I was going to get out of it anyway. So it's nothing ventured, nothing gained in that. And generally speaking, if you're listening to Michael Jordan, if you're listening to Phil Jackson, if you're listening to Richard Branson, people like that, you're going to learn something, or you're going to understand, you know what, I don't want to be like that. I've met plenty of people who have this, oh my God, I'm having dinner with this guy tonight. Look what he's doing. Look how much he earns. And you couldn't be more disappointed getting in the taxi going home, because you think, oh, wow. Either you think, tap yourself on the back, I'm as good as him or her, or you think, oh, I didn't like how he behaved. I didn't like how he didn't say thank you. I didn't like how he didn't engage. I didn't like how he turned away when he shook my hand. Little tiny things. So no, I don't have an aspiration of I learned from Sir Alex, or it's not like that. I just love the topics of everything and try and listen and read as much as I can.
Because obviously what you're talking about there, I mean, obviously at the moment, The Last Dance on Netflix with the Chicago Bulls, obviously I think, everything, I mean, I'm watching it myself, and obviously you look at that and you look at the traits, and I think that's what people take, and it resonates across sport. It's the traits of why these people became so successful. And we're not just talking about the player, Jordan, the coach, Phil Jackson, the business as a Bulls.
Absolutely.
And I think, obviously, for me, that's one of the things I take out of that is looking at, obviously, you must take that in the business, and you go back to that word, ruthless. How does that work in the sport industry, in there?
It's my, so the things I take and I've always sort of maybe drummed in and then taken and learned and understand them a bit more. Things like dedication, obsession. I've wrote a few down: learning, ambition, leadership, relationships. You want to work, or you want to do business, or you want to be sat next to in a dressing room, generally somebody who you like. It'd be a grim world if we go to the office every day and, oh God, I've got to have a meeting with her or him. Because generally you want to create an environment that's happy, and there's going to be fallings out, there's going to be a cry and match, there's going to be a cuddle. That's fine. And I go into it like that, because if you go to football sport, you'll know more than anybody in a dressing room, the good managers are the managers who choose the right words at the right time. And And sometimes it's a cuddle, sometimes it's a rollicking, sometimes you don't want to hear what he's going to say, but go on, hit me with it. And then you go and score 2 goals in the second half and you win 2-1. So that manager did the right thing at the right time. And I've wrote obsession, and I know Steven Gerrard did a thing about it, about being obsessed. I used to look at the central midfielder and think, I have to move him out the way. And then the next one, and the next one. And it is, because I believe that if you want to do something that you like and you want to make that your career, then you've got to be obsessed. I don't think you can just course through. I think there's a few people who can, because they've just got the knack, or they've got a lucky guy, and we all know the lucky guy down the road, and that's fine. But I think hard working and ethics can just be called obsessed. If you love what you're doing and you're obsessed by it, then you're probably going to do okay, in my view.
I think when you talk about obsession and desire and dedication, and obviously we're trying to get these through to our obviously students who are obviously studying, and having that belief that there is something bigger, and having that obsession to do more, and obviously coming from a business point of view, because I say we're not all going to be top athletes. Absolutely. But it's still the same business, as in the obsession. So is it, obviously as a company out there, is it your obsession to be the best?
Yes, and best, again, best sort of subjective. What does best mean? So what we sort of do is say sort of highest quality, best delivery. We use other words and sort of underpin it with quality, and that's quality of everything. Quality of clients we want to work with, the quality of schools and venues we want to work with, and of course they're not all going to be 10 out of 10. But the desire for the highest quality is going to then drive that quality metric through. But yeah, I mean, it's the business side of it is the difficult side, but that's the side that then transferable skills from. I'll just give you a quick example. I get asked to do like careers evenings, and can you come and speak at the network or business network or even schools? And I love the school one, because you stand in front of the 15, 16-year-old students who, got a guest in, some are turning off, some's got the phone out, fine, no problem. And you just sort of say, put your hands up who wants to have a career in sport. Put your hands up if you think you're going to have a career in sport. Put your hands up who wants to play in sport, who wants to play at Wembley or Old Trafford. And then suddenly the hands, from 1,000 hands got 500 to 200 to 100, and then 2 people's got their hands up. Why's your hand up? I'm the best swimmer in the school. Great. You? I play netball for England. Fantastic. Right. What do you want to do? Because you just had your hand up earlier. Oh, well, I want to be a doctor, and my family want me and my sister to be doctors. I'm going, okay, but you love sport. Why can you not be a doctor in sport? Why can you not be an administrator in sport? Why can't you be the chief executive? Why can't you be the managing director? Every career is in sport. If you put sport before every other football or the actual sector, before every job title, it's there. It's there. So let's not say, I'm not going to be a player, so I'm not going to work in sport. There's more people work off the pitch than on the pitch now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, sports obviously plays a huge part in obviously what I do and obviously in what you do. Thinking about them, and so if you had one piece of advice for obviously students aspiring to succeed in the sports sector, what would it be? Learn would be, if it was one. I mean, you stuck me on one word, so I'll just say learn. But learning with many different aspects. So find what your passion is, and I'm a firm believer in start with trying to do something in your passion. So for football was mine. So played football, failed at football. Fear of failure, big in my head, huge. I failed once, I'm never going to fail again. That was just a commitment I made to myself. So I learned how to do it. I might have got a few doors opened. For sure I did. Have I been lucky? You need luck. But luck and doors opening only gets you so far. It might get you in the room. It might get you in the interview. It might get you the job. Okay. But then what you know, how you are as a person, what your character's like, how open you are to learning new skills will keep you in that role or room or job. So I think it's all underpinned with learning. And I know, and I'm not I wasn't an educated guy coming out of school. So I know the word learning is, that's pens and paper, isn't it? It's not. You can go for a run and listen to a podcast. You can be playing sports. You can be playing FIFA. You can do anything you want and still be learning, because it's still going in your brain and you're picking things up. So learning's changed. Probably needs a better word actually than learning now, but
I would say learning is the word, and it's lots of different ways around that as well. But I would start with your passion and your ambition to drive that learning. And then if that door slams, then you've got to go in a different direction.
So if you're thinking about the lots of obviously children and kids growing up in England, we look up to obviously certain sports idols. Who do the obviously young kids in United Arab Emirates look up to? Have they got any idols? So is there anyone currently making or playing any top sport in the top leagues that they can aspire to?
Yeah, so again, looking at the dynamic shift of sort of the 15%, 85%, you've got Emiratis families who are very Western educated and living, so that most of the Emiratis are still watching the Premier League, still watching the main sports. So that the world idols are still the world idols, the Ronaldos, the Messis, etc., etc. So we're not going to kid ourselves on saying there's an Emirati guy who everybody wants to be like. It's not really like that in the sense of a global sports star, because there's not that many big Arab sports stars. There's some inspirational Arab leaders and business people and doctors. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid is the ruler of Dubai, vice president of the UAE, and he's somebody who people look up to. He's got books on the shelves when you go down the supermarkets, and he's the CEO of the Emirates type of thing, and people aspire in a leadership position to learn off him and his learnings. Sport, I can't invent a sportsman who's not there, so there isn't really Arab. Mo Salah would be the big guy at the moment, because Egyptian, GCC, still the Middle East, Arabic speaking. If he wanted to be the president of Egypt, I'm sure if he went for elections, he could be. He's that popular. He's absolutely idolized in every single country in the Middle East. Locally, there's footballers, Abdul Rahman, who went on trial, I think, at Man City and maybe Wolves, left-footed centre midfielder, very good player. Ismail Mata, people you'll not know, but people who are locally known just haven't made that transition into Western sport yet. A couple of good basketballers. I think two of them are on the Michael Jordan documentary. Ahmed Rashad, who did the interview with him in the Jeep, and Abdul Jabbar. They went and played in the NBA, so they're big guys. Basketball's big here, probably as a result of that as well. So horse racing is a big follow from Emiratis due to the Sheikh's been involved in horse racing with the Queen and things like that. So that's got a big following here. So yeah, I think we're still waiting for that Arab sports world breakthrough at the level of Mo Salah.
Do you think that's something that the country really strives for to get out, or not so much? They're happy to follow the world stars.
It's an interesting one, because again, if you can pay for Ronaldo to come and be an idol, do we need to create our own idols? So there's another price thing. But I think that the platforms and the development is in play. The clubs are ready. The league's decent. It's not great, but it's decent. It's there. The teams do well. But again, to go and immerse yourself in our, let's say, UK, and there's many other places you could go to other than the UK, but if a young Emirati was to go to the Northeast, there's going to be that cultural issue, the weather, the climate, things like that I'm not sure if it's conducive to the genetics and the DNA of the Middle Eastern families. Many do. Many go to the UK for education, but that sports piece is a little bit missing at the moment. But it's not for the want of trying. And as I said, Abdul Rahman went on trial at clubs. He has a really good life here. The Sheikhs love him here. He does well for the Sheikhs team here. He gets well paid. Argument to say, why would he want to go and play in the Northwest? But from an ambition and an aspiration of being the best footballer in the world, he probably could and should. Or he probably should. Whether he could or not is a different story.
So obviously, as they're trying to bring obviously teams and big players over there, aren't they? Probably players who are at the end of their careers. Is that something that the fans take to? Do they go and watch the games because of the bringing bigger stars over? Maybe at the end of the careers, but they're still the name.
Yeah. Not, it doesn't attract. It's evident it doesn't attract more fan supporter base. There's evidence base. We've done a lot of studies on that in terms of what is the attendance now and what was it before Negredo come over or Cannavaro. It didn't. It spiked for one game. I've watched Fabio play. That was it, really. So no, it doesn't. I think what it does do is gives the academy kids and it gives the coaches a professional outlook on what it takes to be a World Cup winner or a Ballon d'Or winner. And I think that has value. It definitely has value in terms of saying, oh, that's how Fabio does it. Oh my God, Fabio can do 1,000 press-ups. I think it sets a standard of, imagine how good he was in his peak. But I don't think it does anything from a spectator perspective. I would love to see young European footballers come out here and see what they could do and acclimatise quickly, get used to the culture, see what it's like, maybe on loan, and go back to Sunderland and Newcastle, Man City or wherever. Because I think there's benefit to it. It's a very, very technical league. The DNA of an Emirati is very slight, very agile, fast, fit. So it actually opens itself up to technical footballers, if we're talking football. And I think what this country could and should do is create associations with the more technical leagues, maybe one league down from the top, so Segunda Division in Spain or Ligue B in France, to say, right, it's more technical. You're not going to Stoke on a Tuesday night. Go and play the Division 2 in Malaga. That might be a better fit for the Emiratis, I think. But yes, that's how I would describe that.
I mean, you talked about the player out there and the athlete. Obviously, at the moment, we're talking about in England the football DNA of what's going to produce the new. Do they have a DNA out there of what they want to produce and of what is being produced? No, when I've watched local football, and honestly not an expert in local football here, to be very brutally truthful, but when I have watched them, you can clearly see their genetic makeup. You can clearly see their technical makeup. You can clearly see that they don't like closing the cross. You can clearly see they're not bothered about a tackle. But you can see what they have done. They have done 50,000 step overs. They have done the running down the wing and the cross and the overhead kick, because technically they're very good and they're agile and they're quick and they're fit, the characteristics I've described earlier. But that sporting aggression, that sporting competitiveness isn't there. And they openly admit that. They openly say, oh, UK, they like tackle, yeah? And you're like, yeah, they do, but they can play as well. But that's fine in this context, and that's fine in this country because it's like for like. But that's probably why they don't go and make the grade or want to make the grade in a different country as well, because there's a bit of a home comfort piece here. It's very like the North East. Yeah, everyone likes the North East, don't they? Gareth, it's been absolutely insightful, and obviously for me, listening to how it works in another country, and obviously for people, hopefully students listening and anybody listening, it's been so insightful, informative, and totally appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. And just on that note, and for the college and any of your students, Ian, anybody wants to write questions, touch base by email, whatever it needs. And if I don't know the answer, one of my team certainly will, whether it's football, gymnastics, cricket, whatever sport. We're open. We have affinity with the area and the country. So anything the students want, yourself and college, just give us a shout.
Really appreciate that, and obviously thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thanks, Gareth.
Thanks, Ian.
Top man.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye bye now. Bye.